Well, I think we should probably get started though, because it already is about 15 after approaching. So we do want to spend as much time with H5P as we can. So if you are just coming in, please put your name and access ID in the chat. Good morning to everyone. Definitely a one way to start the morning with a tech debacle. My name is well, I guess we'll start what we're here for today. This is EdTech Thursday, where we dive deep into technology. We get a little meta. We get a little meta with trying to figure out our technology to present the technology. So yeah, sometimes, you know, it's always good to practice maybe beforehand. And that's what we're here to do today, is to show you some things that you can do with H5P and interactive teaching. So that's going to be the focus of our presentation today. I am joined in the chat today by a number of our colleagues here at the OTL. My name is Ryan Kostanecki. I'm ABD in the Political Science Department and a new e-learning specialist here at the Office of Teaching and Learning. I'm also joined by Brooke, who is a PhD in German Studies and is another e-learning specialist here at the OTL on the CARES grant. Michelle is our esteemed program coordinator who takes care of everything and makes sure everything is organized and is always here. You always, if you've been to any of the presentations, you'll always see she's in the chat. So thank you, Michelle, as always. And then I have another number of other colleagues in here. Chad and Greg and Orneil are all on the CARES grant as well. Thank you for coming. And Naima, who is a slightly older, by just a few months, a member of the OTL. So we're all kind of new here too. So this is going to be a presentation I think that'll be valuable for everyone. And then last but not least, definitely not least, we have Tanya Thomas, who is so gracious to join us today. She is a very credentialed instructional designer. So we are very lucky to have her today. She has over 20 years of experience specializing in multimedia e-learning. As you can see by all of those letters after her name, I had to look a number of those up, what they meant. She is extremely credentialed, so we're very, very lucky to have her today, that she took the time. So thank you so much for being here with us today. She's gonna
I'm just gonna nerd.
She's gonna walk us through a number of H5P demos and some things that she's done with it. When we've done it with some faculty, she's been, again, so gracious to join us, and I was just blown away with some of the things she's done. So she's gonna give you a really good tour of the different capabilities of H5P and how it can be employed. And so again, she's also a certified project manager and process improvement expert with Wayne State University's finance and business operations. And she's also a professor in both communications and in the business administrations program. So she runs the gamut from the admin side to the faculty side, and all the time using these tools, which is, again, it's amazing that we're able to have her with us today. So just to go over an outline, I should have put very first is figure out how to use technology. That's the first thing we did today. And then we just went through some introductions with everyone that's joining us. And we'll go over some of the learning outcomes that we're going to try to do, talk a little bit about the pedagogy behind interactive learning with the web-based, and then we're going to jump right into the demos. And then depending on how much time we can get more into the weeds of H5P. But kind of the thing that just of today is, I know a lot of people in here have used H5P before. Some of you that haven't, that's fine. If we have time, we'll go through it, and you can always set up a consultation at the OTL in terms of if you want to get deeper into learning some of the tools that maybe you're having trouble with or so forth. We're always here to help you. So with whatever you do need. So if somebody wants to drop the consultation link, one of my colleagues in the chat, just in case, that would be great. So what are the learning outcomes for today? We want to define active learning and universal design for learning, just kind of some pedagogy to think about before we jump into these tools, because it can be kind of overwhelming. So we kind of want to put our minds in terms of why we would use these tools, specifically for what type of pedagogical consideration. And then we're going to talk about integrating H5P into your course. If we have time, because again, we're running a little behind, but I definitely have some links built into the slides, and I will send them to you after the presentation. I'll drop them in the chat, and there's a number of links in there that can help you with that. And then we'll also, the kind of the meat and potatoes of the presentation is we want to demonstrate some H5P content. So just kind of quickly, we have a small group. So I already have heard from most of you, which is wonderful. So I'd love to just, if you want to unmute yourself or you want to type in the chat, have you used any interactive online tools to engage your students in an asynchronous or synchronous setting? And if so, what tools? And I know I have a few H5P users in here that we have worked with before.
I'll jump in real quick if that's okay. Tiffany here.
Please, please.
So I started using H5P just a little bit in my classes. I teach in the Sports Administration and Management program in the College of Education as a lecturer. And I started this semester in one of my classes using H5P a bit as far as like creating a course presentation. And it was really kind of neat how I can put the turn cards in, include video, and it comes up nice and big on the screen, embed a video, knowledge checks, and some different elements that help the students progress through the content. And I've received some pretty good feedback. That I did that for the first module and told them I'm trying something new, so stick with me a little. And so far they seem to like it, so I'm going to continue building some of my content in that and continue exploring H5P.
Thank you. That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different tools, right? It can sometimes be overwhelming when you look at it at first, but if you take it slow and play with kind of one thing at a time and get the grip of it and present it to your students, I'm sure they're going to have a really, a lot more dynamic experience rather than just kind of presenting them more passive content. Thank you, Tiffany. Anybody else use any other tools? I see Chad here at the OTL is a big fan of Flipgrid. I know he's been using Flipgrid and helping faculty implement it in its course or in their courses.
Hi, this is Tiara. I have relatively little experience with interactive tools. I have, however, started using Mentimeter this past semester. It seems to be, a useful way of making sure students are engaging and thinking through problems, but looking to learn more.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, there's a number of different tools, right? Mentimeter, I haven't used it personally, but I've heard good things about it. And again, there's a number of different tools. And the one nice thing that's nice about H5P, and we'll get deeper into it as we go, is that there's a number of different tools built into it, and they all integrate into Canvas pretty easily. And we support it here at the Office of Teaching and Learning and at Wayne State. And we have a number of licenses, full licenses. So you get full access and you get full support from not only us at the Office of Teaching and Learning, but also the tech people at H5P. Okay, so I guess the other question I would have is what does active learning mean to you? If anybody just wants to throw maybe a definition in the chat or unmute yourself and just kind of give me what you think active learning means to you.
This is Wei. Active learning to me seems like I'm no longer talking to my computer. I can hear a voice come back from my students, and I would prefer more discussion. And if I just walk through my slides, I can just record it and throw it online and don't know how students feel. And I really don't want to handle many emails or even discussion board. They have questions, this and that. So I still, is that word nostalgia? I like the in-classroom feeling. So if any online version can mimic the in-classroom feeling, that will be great. I know it cannot happen at the same time synchronously, but I hope that it will be hybrid. Sorry, I give it long answer to your short question.
No, please. This is what we're here for. I'd love to have conversations and discussions. I'd rather do that than just me talking the whole time, because that would be inactive learning, right? That's what we're trying to overcome here, is just me up here the whole time talking. And that's exactly what you're saying, is that you could just record, over a lecture for your students, but that's not a two-way street. Somebody put in the chat, Karen, thank you. It's not just a one-way street, right? And that's what that's what active learning is about. And the nice thing about H5P is there are ways, in some ways built in, and you could work through it with your students and so forth, to have that kind of more dynamic synchronous experience. But the nice thing about H5P is it gives your students the ability to have an interactive learning, in an asynchronous session too, where you might not even be able to be there, but you can present content to them in a way that they can interact with it more. And we're going to get to that shortly when we get to some of the demonstrations to show you how that can be. So yeah, active learning is generally defined as instructional methods that engages students in the learning process. In short, active learning requires students to do meaningful learning activities and think about what they're doing. So it's just a definition, one of many, of what active learning is. And I like to place it in the UDL framework, and you can really get into the weeds with this, but just to kind of go over it kind of broadly, it's just essentially it comes from ADA, the American Disability Act, and it started with physical barriers, overcoming physical barriers, and then it translated into universal design for learning, and that's really about overcoming learning barriers. So it's about representing and engaging in action and expression with students. So again, with representation, it's about finding methods to represent the material, to demonstrate the material to your students in a number of different means. It's about engaging them in the same way with a number of different means. And then, so that's what H5P is really good at. Those first two is about giving students a number of different ways. You giving students, you're expressing information to them, concepts and so forth, in a number of different ways. And then engagement, it allows them to engage with it in a number of different ways, rather than just being passive absorbers of the information. That's kind of the big thing, the big takeaways of what H5P could do. And you can really get into the weeds with UDL, like I said, and get deep down into these things, but it allows for this. And then there are some ways that students can, depending on the H5P content that you use, there's a lot of ways for them to do action and expression as well. But really, I think it really hits home on those first two of representation and engagement, when you're presenting material asynchronously to them, where you're not there and they're still absorbing the material. So what is H5P? We keep talking about this. It's already halfway through the webinar because of the technical glitches we had. So what is it? H5P is an HTML5 package. And what that means is that, and Tanya will be even better at this, describing it for me. So Tanya, please always, with anything that I'm doing, feel free to jump in. But essentially what HTML5 is the newest version of how web content is delivered to anybody that's on a website or using a mobile device, a computer, so forth. All browsers, updated browsers, should be able to present HTML5 content. So it's the newest and most dynamic way to present web content, essentially, through a browser. And it's universal in terms of that any device that has updated a browser, of any browser that you'd be using, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Windows Edge, or what do they call it? It's something new every day, right? It's now Edge, and it was the browser, built into Windows used to be Internet Explorer and so forth. All these browsers, though, they can all display this content built in. So that's what's nice about H5P, is that there's nothing extra that they need on the back end in H5P when they're creating these tools, is that they're making sure that it works with all of these different browsers. And it's responsive content, which means that anything that is created, it's interactive generally, and that's what the idea behind H5P is to make this content responsive and interactive. And the nice thing about H5P too is that and we'll go over this at the end, if you aren't an H5P user and you want to test it out, you can go to www.h5p.org, not .com, .org, and you can sign up for a free account, and you can build content on your own. A number of the content that we're going to be demonstrating today, you can build on your own and try it out. And then if you think it's something that you would like and you would like to implement in your courses, then you just have to let us know at the OTL. And we have a number of paid subscription accounts that you don't have to pay for, that we're paying for, that you can use. And then you can implement all of this right into your Canvas course. And it's integrated directly in Canvas. So again, H5P .org allows you to create the content. It's ungraded. It's public. Anybody can see the content that you're creating. That's the kind of the restriction of H5P.org. But again, that's so you can try some things out. And if you like it, you can let us know, and then we can get your private subscription that then you can use to integrate into your Canvas courses. So what are some content types? I'm just going to go over it quickly. I'm sorry, I should stop. Actually, is there any questions? And Tanya, did I explain that you think sufficiently?
I think you did that really well. Yeah. I think we've all run into the issue as faculty trying to innovate with our course content and running into issues with presenting multimedia that won't play on an iOS, but it'll play on an Android, trying to be mindful of applying universal design to address all of our learners' ways of learning and frankly, their capabilities of learning. And I think H5P goes a long way in allowing us to present content that even, it reaches a broader audience on a broader set of devices that might have varying broadband abilities and things like that, to still give them a more enriched environment in which to learn, rather than just having to boil it down to text and basic images.
100%. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And that's it, right? And that's what I love about universal design is you can really get into the weeds with it. But when you look at the kind of overarching view of it, and if you listen to the people that do it, that really developed it into the weeds, because it's developed in cognitive neuroscience and it comes from accessibility, is that it's just really about providing one more way to present content, right? The more ways that you can present content to any student, you're going to find better ways to connect to that student. You're going to find that that student's more engaged, and it's ultimately going to do what we're all here to do, is lead to student success, right? If students have more ways to interact with any type of content, they're going to be, again, more engaged and more successful. It's that idea of that there was different types of learners, and that a lot of that's been debunked. And it's more not that there's specific different types of learners, but that if you can present content in a number of different ways, you just can reach everyone, right? You can reach everyone. So that's kind of the just behind it. And I'm just going to quickly go over some the content types and what they can do. And then I'm going to hand it off to Tanya, who can actually demonstrate them, which will be much more interesting than hearing me talk about them. So there's things like text matching for key terms and concept definition. There's speech recognition for language. We've been playing with that at the OTL. It's great. You can actually speak in a number of different languages, and it can, the language that you're speaking, it can pick it up, translate it for you into the other language, in the writing of the other language, and check to see if it's correct. There's graphs and charts for data visualization. There's interactive video, visual tools, and images for, again, varying different types of content. And there's different ways to present material too, in terms of the accordions, tabs for organization. And then it's not on here, and one of the big things that's new is they actually have what are called books now. And you can actually build all of this content individually and then place it all in a book. And if any of you have ever been to any type of, if you've ever been to any like corporate training, or I know Wayne State has some of it, they use this a lot, where it's like you take a training course and there's a number of different types of these contents all built into one kind of training module. And if you've ever seen anything like that, that's kind of what the book is. And maybe we'll have some time to demonstrate that as we go. But just the last few things before I hand it over to Tanya. There's a lot of analytics built into this too. So as faculty, as your students are using it, you can get a lot of feedback without actually getting feedback from them, in terms of like how they're doing with it, how long it's taking them to do the activities, obviously, and then it's the grading portion of it as they're doing the activities. All this can be integrated right into the Canvas gradebook. And then last but not least is accessibility. All of the H5P content has context within accessibility, and anything that is not accessible, they're very clear about it, that doesn't have accessibility integration. But anything that does, they have full support for it too, which is excellent. So not only do we have people at the OTL that are very concerned with accessibility, and we know how to make sure that content that you're putting online is accessible, that if you're concerned with any of it, or even if we need help with it, every tool that is accessibility enabled has people that work at H5P that work specifically on that. And so they're very in tune with this as well. So again, if you have any questions about any of that stuff, please contact us at the OTL, or SDS can help. And then obviously too, H5P can too. So it's across the board. And now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Tanya. I will stop my share. I made you co-host, and yes, I would love for you to demonstrate some of the content that you've built out, and pretty much more or less just take it from here.
Okay. Well, I figured what I would do for you guys would be to let me just make sure I'm sharing the proper screen. Okay. So I think what I really chose to do for you guys is to, in an effort not to eschew my running current course statistics and gradebook and things like that, I just copied and made some simplified versions of some things that I've been using in my courses. In my COM 2310 web design course, it's a very hands-on course, and we spend a lot of our live time on Wednesday evenings going through exercises and going through demonstration and having discussion and things like that. So that certainly brings some of that live engagement back into the online environment, which they know I'm very big on, is making sure that that our courses are as deeply and humanly enriched as possible online as they are in the classroom. And so for those things that really can't be done face-to-face through virtual sense, I try to make interactive in those courses. And so the samples that you're going to see really kind of pertain to my course and how I've chosen to apply it to my particular content. And so I trust that you'll kind of look at that and see how you could maybe flip that to your particular content and how you'd be able to use it. So one of the simplest things that I have going on in my class, and actually I'm going to flip to the student view so you can see it the way the students see it. One of the simplest things that I have going on in my class is the interactive reading. One of the nice things I like about H5P is that it brings some functionality back to Canvas that many of us who did a lot of coding under the hood on our Canvas pages was able to do with a standard set of CSS pointing to style guides that they had once made available and now have disabled. It kind of brings some of that presentation capability back. And so being able to have a section with a lot of content in it, but not wanting to overwhelm them with an extremely long scrollable page, being able to section that content into an accordion like you see here is really helpful. So I just threw this together really quickly using the loremipsum.io website where you can go and copy just boilerplate content. And what I like about this is that, again, in order to not overwhelm your readers, they don't just click on these and they stay open, all of them, and then end up with that very long scrolling page anyway, which we're trying to prevent. You can only have one section open at a time, so they can progress through these different sections. They can click and open, click and close, or they can just proceed to the next section. The previous one will close. So that allows me to put a lot of content in a particular page, minimize the number of pages that I'm having to create and manage from semester to semester, course to course, but still offer them the amount of content organized in a way, in a scaffolded kind of way to make that page a lot more effective. So that's the H5P. There we go. H5P. I want to say HP because it used to be a computer company. I don't think HP is around anymore. So the next example that I wanted to show, and that was just content embedded on a regular Canvas page. To create activities that go against the gradebook, that actually integrate with your gradebook, you have to create an assignment with them. And so even I'm still fiddling with how to add content in a quiz per se, which really is not advised. It's best that you just create an assignment and have your graded activities embedded into that assignment page. Canvas quizzes don't really allow you the space to put in an embedded activity that scores when there's already an engine behind the quiz that scores, so it kind of competes with each other. So that doesn't work out too well. So one of the elements in my class is requiring them to know enough about HTML code to at least recognize it. I've been doing web design for over 20 years, and I've never been such a purist that I've just opened up Notepad and just started writing code, riffing it off the top of my head. There's this thing called Google that really just makes it easy for me to not have to memorize all that. And I don't require that of my students either. And I make that very clear to them. I really just want you to be familiar with it enough to be able to recognize it. And so being able to quiz them this way, there's a fill in the blanks version of quizzing in Canvas that is kind of standard. This is a little more fun because it's drag and drop. So I can start to fill in just by dragging my terms into, and bear with me because I have to read the question while I'm speaking to you. I can start filling in my blanks just by drag and drop. And so there's a way that you can change this activity. Right now I have it requiring me to fill in all the blanks before I can see how I'm doing. There's also a setting that I can enable here where it would actually check how I'm doing as I'm going along. So as I got this right or wrong, it would turn it green or red with like a check mark or a red X. Here I have it set to just check for me at the very end when I go to hit the check button. I'm going to get this wrong intentionally just so you can kind of see it. Unordered list and that. So those two should be wrong, those last two. And so I have the option then of allowing them to retry this or not. And already, because I've attached this to an assignment in Canvas, it's already pretty much graded this for me. If I go to my grade book and I look at my score, I would see that I've only gotten the 3 right. But right here, I can just retry again. So I'll do it the right way this time. And you guys can learn a little bit of HTML today. So a bulleted list is an unordered list. An ordered list is a numbered list. We'll get those all right, and voila. So when they get them all right, they get the gold star. And as much as we think that might be cheesy to some people, I guarantee you, even for our students, hitting that gold star is just very gratifying for most folks. And that goes a long way in kind of replacing the high five we used to do in the classroom when we could actually touch each other. Another example that I've sort of repurposed that you've probably seen a little bit before, but I wanted to do it in a way that has to do with my content and my course, how I applied it, is being able to do and you'll see something's been graded. In case you were noticing on my screen, I've already registered a grade in my grade book for that last thing I did. Here's another assignment where it's an interactive video, and I'm just going to zoom us to the section where we get close to the prompt.
WordPress itself, the open source.
And hopefully you can hear that okay.
Because it's open source, it is freely available to everyone on Earth. Not only is it freely available, but you actually own it.
So it's talking about the comparison of 2 versions of WordPress. And so he just mentioned a minute ago that there's one version of WordPress that we as users actually own. And so now I've stopped and I've said, hey, I've got a question. And they've got to click on it and they have to now answer. And I'm sort of, I'm trying to create an active reading experience for them. A lot of my class, because it's so much of a hands-on course, there's a fair bit of reading that goes on, but then there's also a fair bit of video watching. And I'm not one to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of content out there that I try to curate that's already decent rather than me having to spend hours building this myself. I'm a part-time faculty member. I work full-time doing something else here at the university. So I have to kind of optimize my time. So I reuse these videos and I just make them my own by making them these interactive sort of activities. So the version of WordPress that we actually can own, is that one. And they know instantly whether they got it right or got it wrong. And then there's the gold star again. I'm going to zoom. There's another little marker here for another thing that I've added to the video. So I'm going to zoom there really quick. And you'll see what this other little activity does.
Thanks for listening. And I hope I helped you decide which to use, .com or .org.
So there's a summary that they get where you can see what the questions were and how they scored at the very end, and they have to submit their answers to actually get the grade, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really helpful for me to take what could be just boring videos, many of them that they have to take and watch because our class is so hands-on, to making them a little bit more interactive so that they're not falling asleep. I get more of an idea that they're actually watching them and not just skipping over the content I'm providing and just going straight to the exercises. So that also helps me make sure that my content is actually being used. Another thing that, because we're talking about a very hands-on sort of course, a lot of the skills that I am not able to monitor face-to-face anymore. It used to be in the classroom that in our lab, I would be able to walk around in this lab and see everybody working on their websites because they have a project that they have to build by the end of the course that they then have to also present. And so I am able to verify that they're working on their own sites. I'm able to verify, you know, what kind of struggles they might be having. We can sit down elbow to elbow and talk about what issues they might be having. In the virtual world, I obviously have to be a little bit more diligent in creating those mechanisms for knowing that they know what they're doing, knowing that they recognize interfaces and features that they need to use. And then I do some other things in my class that ensure that they're the ones doing their own work and that they're the ones doing their own presentation, etc. So here there's this particular quiz that I have, and using the interface, I actually make them go and hunt for hotspots, answering these questions. So for this particular interface here, how would they go, you know, what would they click on to add something new to the library? So there's a new button here. They get a green mark if they're correct. If they go clicking something that isn't marked, oh, that's wrong. And at the very bottom, because this is actually a combo image, and I'll talk about that in a minute, at the very bottom of the activity, they get instant feedback. So the one I just clicked on was wrong. It says, nope, that's not one, try again. And they can kind of see a running visual of their scores. So they can continue trying until they get things right. There's another, the same add new button that's here, also shows up here, and that one's right. So that was one that I allowed them to choose. They continue to scroll down because I've made this a combo image, and this is the multiple hotspots component of H5P. So they can continue addressing the next question, the next image. This is where they would need to click, and that one's marked correct. They would continue down this very long image, composite image, and they know that they've got 2 more answers that they need to find. So that's kind of, I mean, it's kind of a giveaway, but it's, you know, I don't use H5P for incredibly high stakes exams. They're already doing high stakes projects with their website development project and the presentation that serves as their final. So these are really just formative confirmations of learning. So to add a new plugin, there's a new button there, but then there's also a new option here. And whoopee, I've got it all right. I got 5 out of 5. I got my gold star. Everybody's happy. We'll go to our next item. So again, not in a high stakes sort of way. And this is just one question on one page. I could line up a bunch of questions on this page that are similar. If I wanted them to really kind of take a quiz orally, I can have them do that rather than having to type in stuff. And this just gives them another way, another choice, going back to that whole concept of UDL, giving them another choice, another way to express themselves, another way to engage in the content. So here, I can just very easily fill in the blank with my voice. The name of the CMS that we're focusing on in my particular course, if I push to speak, is WordPress. And it heard me because that's the word that I filled in. I got my gold star, and that's pretty much it. So I've registered 3 grades already in just this demo. I could go to my grade book and kind of check it out and see how I've done. So I see some grades have been registered. I think those are all the items that I created. Oh, and no, one more, a combo. This is what I want to tell you. So for my multiple hotspots demonstration that I showed you, I created a very long combo image so that I could test them on multiple hotspots in a single image. There's also a component of H5P that allows you to create several interactions and line them up on a page. And actually now there's 2. Ryan mentioned one of them earlier. One of them that they've had for the longest time is the column item. the column item will allow you to, it gives you places to slot in one activity, create it, divide it, create another activity, and just line them up vertically. So if you wanted to create an assignment page that had multiple questions, had multiple different kinds of questions, you could use that column component to just add in and layer many of these interactions like I've done here. So I've got a hotspot exercise that gets marked, and then I come down. It looks a lot like the combo image that I did, but I didn't have to go and create the combo image, which was a lot of screenshots in an extra long image, and then I had to add text to actually ask the questions. Here I was just able to build it all in H5P separately, but then combine them together using that column component. So I'll answer that question correctly, but then I've got a whole different kind of question here, a fill in the blank question. CMS stands for Content Management System. And yes, they've got to spell it correctly. And I can check it and get it correct. And there you have it. So 5 different kinds of content that I thought would be good for you all to see as I use it in my course in the context of my particular topic. Hopefully that gives you a little bit. Sorry, I live by the beach. I live by Selfridge, and you might hear jets. They're doing maneuvers today. And my patio door is wide open, so I can hear it really well. You probably can too. So that's just some of the ways that I use H5P. There are a bunch of other ways that I have it live in my class. But I figured it would be quicker, simpler, more streamlined to just repurpose some activities and simplify them a little bit for you all. I'm happy to hear what questions you all have. Hopefully this has been helpful.
It has. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that demonstration. And it really does too. It seems like a lot, but it also, I feel like, just scratches the surface as well. And we don't want to tell people, we don't want to overwhelm faculty and say, oh, try all these things at once, right? But this is just a demonstration of some of the things you can do. And like another good example, like the interactive video, which I love to do, we use Edpuzzle for that too. But in H5P as well, you can add different question types. You know, with the language thing that you showed, you can do that for teaching a foreign language because it recognizes another number of different languages. So there's all different types of activities that you can do with this. And you really touched on that point. And I think I should have done it maybe a little deeper in the pedagogy section, but I really want to emphasize this, is that when you're with your students, when you're not with your students, you want to try to make the content as interactive as possible and make them kind of understand the key terms and concepts and the content that you're trying to provide them to learn. And then when you're with them, that's the time you want to use to really elucidate the concepts and clear up any misunderstanding that they have and have a discussion, right? So this is what's so great about H5P, is that they can learn interactively on their own. And then if there's something they don't understand, especially because, how you said, it's a great thing. A lot of this stuff is really good to use for low stakes assignments. Don't make it heavy grading. And if you grade it, put it in a lower grading category, or just make it participation. And even if they get it wrong, still give them credit for it. And then they're just learning the material. And then when they come to you, and if you have a synchronous class session, then that's when you can get deeper into the weeds and understand the why of it, and understand, you know, the more intricacies and complexities of the things that you're discussing and talking about, and clear up misunderstandings. I think that's the great thing about interactive content, is that that's what I would do with my students, is prep them with all the information beforehand. So when they came to class, when we used to come to class, that was time for discussion, and that was time for, you know, getting into the deeper, the depths of what we were trying to learn. So if that makes sense.
I agreed. And I think that this is kind of a fun way, not to say that perusal and hypothesis are not fun, but they're geared more toward making sure that there's some accountable interaction for reading and reviewing content. And with H5P, I can kind of take that one step farther and actually allow them to have fun with the content while I get to know that they've done the engaging work before class, or whenever I'm requiring them, you know, whether I need them to prepare ahead of time or what have you. So I just wanted to share one more thing, because I'm actually giving a somewhat related talk to a group, an ISPI group, Performance Improvement Group, later this afternoon. And we're talking about engaging UDL in the process of just performance support. And so one of the slides that I'm going to be showing them is this one, where, and you've all probably seen the commercial, you know, don't make it complicated, you know, just, you know, offer one more way of being able to engage your student in the content. Give them one more choice of a different way of seeing what it is that you're expressing. So I just thought that would be a funny addition for for today.
Absolutely. And that's essentially, that's the crux and the gist of UDL, right? Like you can get in the weeds, and that's, and UDL is the framework, is the pedagogy, and H5P is the tool to make that possible, right? I think that's kind of the why we're here today, is just to show, to give you a demonstration on one more tool that you can use that's really dynamic, but also gives you access to all that. So we only have about 5 minutes left. So what I want to do before we go real quickly is just the slides. Brooke, if you could share them in the chat again, and if anybody needs any other information, let me know. We're not going to unfortunately have time. I didn't know how much time we had, and we were definitely truncated because of everything. But Tanya was gracious enough, did it without even me asking, because I was like, just demonstrate some stuff, and she's like, here's how you do it in the grade book. So that's what I wanted to show, and you saw it. How? No, thank you. That's amazing. That's you know, we don't have time today to get into the weeds, but in this presentation at the end of it here that Brooke just posted, there's links right here, and it walks you through step by step with pictures of the web page right from H5P on how to integrate this content into Canvas as ungraded if you're just embedding it, or if you want to put it in as an assignment with a full account. It walks you through step by step how to do it, and it's as easy as when you build out the assignment and the assignment is in Canvas and they do it as Tanya was doing, you saw as a test student, it puts the grade right into the grade book as well. So if it's anything that you give a clear objective answer to, then it will be inputted directly in the grade book. If it's anything that's subjective, for instance, like the video that she did at the end, you can also do open-ended questions where they can just type something in a text box, and you can do that with a number of different pieces of content. Then you have to go in and actually manually grade that. But if everything you put in is objective answers, it will go right into the grade book. Subjective stuff, you have to manually grade. And H5P kind of has its own built-in grader that's very similar to Speed Grader. That's built into Canvas. So it's actually very simple to use. And as you go through it, it transmits over. I don't know, Tanya, you use it quite a bit. The last kind of thing I'd say is, I don't know if you've had any, we've had just a little bit of problems with the grading taking a little bit of time right now with some people that have been using it, in terms of like, it happens, right? It's especially right. Yeah, especially right now. So just give you a heads up. If you start using this and you're like trying it out, and if you're doing a graded thing and it's taking a minute to get in your grade book, just give it a little while too, just because of everything that's going on. But with the last few minutes that I have, is there any questions?
Oh, yes, thank you for this very informative section. It's well executed. The one quick question is, for students, when they're watching a H5P video, I don't want them to know where the hotspots are. I don't want to know when the question is going to pop up, but I will allow them to come back to rewind and for the materials that are difficult to chew. Is this, of course, when they rewind, they see where the questions are. Is it possible that I just wanted them to stay awake and did watch the content and give me some feedback? Is this something that easy to achieve in this software?
I would have to defer to Tanya on that. I think anytime you put any type of question in H5P, it's going to show that little circle in there in the interactive video content and most content. And for that, the reason is too, though, is accessibility, I think, is the main thing, is that you want to know. And I think I would say, pedagogically speaking, in a reverse way, is that little circle is an indicator for the students to stay awake. So it's not like it's going to come at them random. They're going to know that this is, you know, I've been paying attention, but this is where I really have to pay attention. And I mean, add more, the questions, as you saw, don't have to be overly complicated. Add a video every, and keep the video short too. That's a big thing that I should have mentioned, is that chunking is very important. If you notice, the Tanya's videos were not very long. It's a good idea to, if you're going to do this with like lectures or over PowerPoints or over videos that you're showing them, try to chunk it and break it up into smaller chunks for them to digest.
Yeah. my suggestion too is that you're not bound by linear thinking where this is concerned either. There are going to be the markers again for that accessibility, yes, and for it for cueing. You know, we know that there's a cognitive model where cueing is an effective learning aid for students, so that's there for that reason. But just because, how do I want to say this? You can salt and pepper in questions into your video, but they don't have to be right after that video said what the answer was. You can ask them whatever they heard in minute 1, you can ask them about that at minute 13. And they know that they had to have watched all the stuff leading up to that to be able to answer the question. And if they don't, they know they've got to go back and they've got to watch. So they've still got to engage with your content. Likewise, you can also pile a bunch of questions toward the end of that video. They're still going to have to go through that entire video to be able to answer those questions. So it's really just, you know, in your strategy of how you apply that particular bit of content.
I'm smiling. Yes, thank you. That is,
Thank you for the question, though. It is important, right? You want to find ways to keep students engaged and interact with whatever content that you're presenting to them, but try to do it. I think what we say at the OTL, right, is try to do it in a way that makes it fun and engaging and makes it so like they, you know, like Tanya said something, that's an excellent example, right? Is that do what she's saying and also try to connect themes and concepts. I'm sure if you're doing a short 7-minute video, everything in that video is probably connected if it's not all the same content, right? So you could build a question that connects to something earlier in the video and relates to what the video is currently talking about, right? Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. Well, we only have about another minute left. Is there any other questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? I thank you so much for everyone for being here and being patient with our technological issues. I'm so glad that we were able to get through this. Tanya, thank you. You're magnanimous. It's wonderful to have you. We definitely want to have you back. This has been absolutely excellent. And maybe next time if we have some more time, we'll get a little deeper into the weeds with how to build out content if anybody's interested. But we assure you it's not very difficult. And if you need any help with it, if you could drop again, Brooke, the link to the OTL consultation, and then also it's just www.h5p, I'll type in the chat one more time, .h5p.org, and you can go there, create an account with your Access ID and get started. And if you have any questions, let us know. And yes, also, yes, thank you, Michelle, on the virtual resource hub, if you could drop that link too, that'll be the very last thing. There's a ton of information on our virtual resource hub. All these links are there. The slides are in the chat. We'll make sure that we have a copy of this presentation and the slides up within a couple of days after the closed captioning gets processed. And it is 11:01. So at this point, I think I'm going to end it unless we have any other pressing concerns.
I just wanted to add an additional note for those who want to try hp5.org and create your account. Know that really that is for your testing purposes, your own learning purposes. They have mechanisms against using the content that you create, which is public, by the way, and inserting that into your course, which isn't going to serve your purpose. So you want to make sure that you're out there really kind of kicking the tires of H5P and seeing if you want to use it in your class, and then engage OTL in securing a license that's actually going to work for integrating into your Canvas course.
Absolutely. Yeah, I should have made that explicit. Thank you. And it's important to make that explicit too, because like the great thing that you did is the without even knowing, I think you had or maybe you did know actually, the H5, you did the .org versus .com video that you had implemented in your course. And that's the thing, .org is open source too. So as I mentioned, any of the stuff and content that you put on there is going to be open source and is going to be, other people will be able to see that content that you build. So keep that in mind too. Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday and hopefully Friday and good weekend. And thank you for attending and have a great day. Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you, everybody at the OTL too for being here. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.